Hi, I'm Josh Herbert, Aquatic Division Manager for the City of Albuquerque.
And my name's Dustin Lamar, Program Coordinator for West Mesa Aquatic Center.
Today we're here at the City of Albuquerque West Mesa Aquatic Center. We're here to talk to you about boating safety. I'm going to talk about smaller crafts like a kayak, a canoe, or paddleboard. We have many different bodies of water throughout the state of New Mexico. Not quite as many as our surrounding states, but we do have quite a few. We have a large body of water that runs through the city in our metro area. It's called the Rio Grande River, and it's been very inviting looking. People want to come and play on the river with their watercrafts, and I want to talk to you about just some safety precautions about traveling down the river in one of these crafts.
And I'm going to talk to you guys about more of the power boats and the fishing boats whenever you might take your family and friends down to a trip down to Elephant Butte Lake or another bigger lake around New Mexico.
So if you have one of these crafts, whether it's a canoe or a kayak or a paddleboard, the first thing you want to do is plan. So you're going to have a plan of action. Where are you going to launch from? Where are you going to put into the river? And where you're going to come out of the river. Also make sure you wear sunscreen, bring snacks, bring water. That's how you should plan your trip. Once you have everything planned out, you know exactly where you're going to launch, where you're going to take out of. You have all of your supplies and you have your sunscreen. You're ready to go. So start early in the morning and you find your spot where you're going to launch and you head down the river. So before you do that, you want to make sure that you have a little bit of experience with operating one of these watercrafts, whether it's a canoe or kayak. One thing that you want to be very cognizant about is your gravity, your center of gravity. If you're in a canoe with your family, make sure everybody's crouching down very low, and that'll prevent tipping over. So the other thing you want to consider is if you're in a big canoe, you're going to have one person who's in charge of controlling where the canoe goes. So with the canoe, what you're going to be doing is steering from the back. So whoever's steering the canoe, you're going to be guiding the canoe from the end, from the back of the canoe. So I want to talk to you about some of the dangers. We're going to briefly go over some tips, but this doesn't replace formal classroom setting, whether it's an online class or an in-person class on how to operate a canoe or kayak. But with the canoe or kayak, if you're headed down to the Rio Grande and you're on a paddleboard, something that is very important that not a lot of people think about is I want you to stay down the middle of the river. If you go off to the sides of the river, you might come into different obstacles, different dangers that could cause your craft to turn over. Once it's turned over, you're in a very dangerous situation. One thing I forgot to mention before is before you get into the water, if you're on a craft, make sure you're wearing a life jacket. This needs to be a Coast Guard approved life jacket, and it also needs to have a UL certification for marine safety. So water safety, a flotation device, you have to have a life jacket on if you're going to be going on the river in a kayak, canoe, or paddleboard. So back to staying down the middle of the river. We are one of the largest bodies, one of the largest collections of cottonwood trees throughout the entire world. So if one of those trees falls in the river, it creates kind of a barrier for the water, and the water is gonna create a diversion, and the water is going to run underneath the tree or around the tree, and it's going to wash away the sand underneath that tree, developing kind of like a sinkhole where all the water wants to go underneath. If you're on the side of the river, your craft runs into one of those trees, one of those hanging trees that fall down in the river, and your boat tips, you're at risk of being sucked under. So it's very important to avoid the sides. And when you're planning your trip, make sure you plan your exit point, and that exit point is free of any hanging trees, fallen trees, any debris or objects that might become difficult to navigate. So those are kind of some brief tips. Make sure you travel down the center of the Rio Grande. Make sure you always have a life jacket on. And if you can, take an online class or an in-person class on details of how to control one of these watercrafts.
Thank you, Josh. So one of the things to remember, like Josh said, anytime that you're going to be getting onto a watercraft, whether it's powerless, like a kayak, or something like your family's power boat, make sure that you are wearing the proper life preserver that's designed for your body size. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the safety that you need to consider whenever you're out on that powered boat with your family or friends. Always remember, especially with an outboard motor boat, that the propellers can be very dangerous, whether it's on or it's off, whether it's running or it's not. So usually an entrance or an exit point for the boat could be the back. It's always important to remember to stay clear of that outboard motor, whether it's on or it's off, because those propellers could be very sharp again. Other things to consider is when the boat is moving, it's really important to stay firmly planted to your seating location and not to be hanging outside of the boat. It would be a very dangerous situation, even falling into the water if the boat was running. Also, some things to help keep you safe whenever you're riding on the boat is to remember that just because you're out on an open lake, such as Elephant Butte or Cochiti Lake, there are shallow points in that water. Some ways you can identify some shallow points if you're not the driver of the boat are the buoys with the orange hazard diamonds. That'll indicate that you're entering an area with shallow water. So if you decide that you want to stop the boat and you're going to swim in that area, it's really important that you don't dive headfirst into that water jumping off of the boat, because there could be shallow water below or other unidentified objects. Also, make sure that even whenever you're going swimming in those shallow areas that you do keep that life preserver on, as there might be multiple people swimming, and that'll help keep you afloat when other people are busy.
Dustin, can anybody take a powered boat out on the Rio Grande, or not on the Rio Grande, but out at one of the lakes?
So you do need to, there are some prior classes that are required. There are requirements by the state of New Mexico, such as age requirement, and also online courses that they're offering now. Depending on the classification of boat, you may need further certification. So just because it's your friend's boat doesn't mean that you may be allowed to drive that boat, much like a motor vehicle on the road.
What are some other safety precautions for those drivers that they need to be aware of in those fun environment situations?
Very good question. So this is an important thing to know, not only if you're driving the boat, but also if you're coming into a situation where there's a boat coming towards you. Much like a roadway here in the US, we're going to drive on the right side of the other vehicles. Same thing with the boat. So if you're driving that boat and you find yourself in a situation where you're coming head on with another one, it's always important to steer right. Just as if you may be in a kayak with another boat, you want to try to evade to the right side instead of going to that left, because that boat should come to your left.
And the last thing I want to mention, both for these non-powered watercrafts and the powered watercrafts, make sure that you are maintaining a level of sobriety. So do not consume alcohol while operating either a smaller watercraft or a motor-powered boat. Thanks for joining us today. And to get more information, you can go to our website, www.cabq.gov.
Hi, my name is Julia Witten, and I am the swim lesson coordinator for the city of Albuquerque. Today we're going to be going over Pod 2 swim lessons and the different elements that you can implement with your child in the pool. Specifically, we're going to be learning about bobs, flutter kick, freestyle arms, and the freestyle stroke. The end goal for these swim lessons is that your child's able to glide off into streamline and begin doing elementary freestyle strokes. Let's get started. All right, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and start with bobbing. We are going to have our hands on the wall. Can everyone show me your hands on the wall? Nice. All right, so now as we do bobs, we want to take a big breath, and then we're going to take the big breath with our mouth. And then when we come down, we're gonna blow all the bubbles out and back up. Can you guys do 3 of those for me? Ready, set, go. Good job. Next, we are going to be learning how to kick. Specifically, this is called flutter kick. Do you guys know how a butterfly flutters its wings kind of rapidly? That's what we want our legs to look like, okay? So parents, as you're watching this with your child, you really want to look for straight legs, no bent knees, and pointed toes, okay? We don't want to flex our feet, we want to point our feet, okay? So kiddos, go ahead and have your hands on the wall, legs out, and start kicking. Keep going, keep going. Now what we want to do is we're going to have our arms out, same position, and we're going to count to 3 with our head in the water. 1, blowing bubbles. 1, 2, 3, back up. And 1, 2, 3. All right, so now we're gonna be talking about streamline. So with streamline, we wanna bring the hand that we write with up and the hand that we don't write with behind that hand. We are gonna hug that front hand with our thumb. Nice and straight. We're gonna use our arms and we're gonna squeeze our head like a little blanket, like a little bed for our head. Parents, one way you can help them is by squeezing their arms to their head so they can really feel what it's supposed to feel like. Good. Try to keep those hands pointed to the sky. Pointed to the sky. Good. Good job. We want to squeeze those ears. Yeah. Now, last thing we want to do in streamline is we want to tuck our chin down. Very good. All right, so now we're going to be gliding off the wall in streamline. The ways we can do this, parents, make sure you're always helping them with this or with any skill you're introducing for the first time. You can either hold them right where their arms meet their head and squeeze and glide, or they can hold that streamline and you can hold their waist and help them glide, okay? So we're gonna be gliding off the wall. We're gonna have streamline, head down, and push off the wall, legs straight. Kind of like that, yeah. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna have a hand on the wall, the hand that you write with on the wall, your feet, have one hand out, and we're gonna bring our ear to our shoulder, and we're gonna push off into streamline. Straight legs, try not to kick this time, just streamline, okay? Ready, set, go! All right, next we are going to be breaking down freestyle. We're gonna start with having our arm out, really emphasizing that your child has their ear close to their shoulder. We're gonna be having them extend that shoulder out, bringing the hips to the side, looking up, and doing flutter kick. While we do this, it's really important that you help your child stay balanced. It really helps them understand where their arm position should be without having to focus too much on keeping balance. So now we're going to be taking this a little step further. Now we are going to be really utilizing the parents, okay? Parents, you're gonna want your child to wrap their hands around your finger. And what this is gonna do, you're gonna want to create an 11 shape with their hands, okay? They're gonna be slightly kicking, head down, and you are going to move an arm for them while making sure the other arm is extended. So you're gonna be here and you're gonna be moving the arms for them, making sure that you're pausing for them to breathe, attaching that ear to the shoulder, okay? Come here and hold and back down. 1, 2, 3, and here, okay? Make sure you guys are blowing lots of bubbles underwater when your head is down, okay? And when you come and reach and take a breath, big breath before you come back down, all right? Now, once your child has mastered that skill, we're gonna move on to something else, very similar to that same motion. Again, you're gonna want your child to wrap their hand around your finger. Now, we're gonna be doing 3 different strokes before they breathe. You're gonna be moving their arms, 1, 2, 3, and on 3, they're gonna reach and hold, similarly to how we just did. And you're gonna wanna keep building that up and doing that. So now we're gonna be putting everything we learned together, as well as one last new skill that you're gonna do, all right? So we are gonna start in streamline, ready on the wall. We're gonna push off into streamline, we're gonna hold, we're gonna start kicking, and we're gonna do 3 strokes, then breathe. If your child isn't really comfortable yet doing that, make sure you're around them, monitoring them, so you can hold them if they need to. Arm out, and head down, push, ready, go. And 1, 2, 3, reach, 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 reach. Now we're going to be going over pod 3. In pod 3, we go over a lot of backstroke, specifically with backstroke float, kicking, backstroke in streamline position, and backstroke arms. Additionally, through pod 3, we want to continue on what we learned in pod 2 by building more endurance in that. So one way that you can warm your child up if they're at this stage is getting them to swim more freestyle before you move into backstroke. At the end of this, the end goal is that your child may be able to swim backstroke well at a long distance. We are going to be doing streamline kick on our back. Now, although we want our head tucked in, we also want to make sure, so we want to have it tucked, but we want to look up, all right? One hand on the wall, one hand out. Let's bring our head back all the way already. And we're gonna go ahead and push it up straight into streamline on our back.
Ready, on your back. Push. Streamline, on your back.
Nice, Harper, nice and straight, straight. Now the last thing we're gonna do to learn backstroke is implement the arm stroke, all right? In order to do this, we are gonna start just as we started with our arms to our side. We are gonna be kicking, and parents, you're gonna want to help your child make that arm movement, all right? You wanna emphasize a rainbow movement, nice and straight. Now let's really talk about our hand placement. That's one of the most important parts of backstroke. We wanna make sure that our thumb is the first thing that comes out of the water. Then, as we're moving our arm more, we're going to rotate with our pinky coming in. So, thumb out, pinky in. Thumb out, pinky in. A good way of measuring when you should rotate is when your hand and your arm is about to pass your ear, right here. Thumb out, pinky in. Thumb out, pinky in. Now, just to build it up, parents, you're gonna wanna be behind your child. To start off, you're gonna wanna grab their arms and move it for them so they can kind of understand what that movement is. The more that you help them understand, the better that their muscle memory is gonna be when they get to independently do it in the future. So let's go ahead and start that. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start on the wall. Ready, push off. Now parents, you're gonna wanna grab their shoulders and arms, and you're gonna wanna begin that movement of backstroke for them, okay? Nice and slow and easy. Thank you so much for joining us today for Pod 2 and Pod 3 lessons. Just a reminder that we just gave you lots of fun tips that you can do with your child this summer, but by no means are these replacements for lessons. When lessons are available, please be sure to sign up when you can.